My name is Kelsey Hartman. I am 22 years old, and my father entered me into a worst daughter competition on a local radio show. He did not use a nickname. He used my full name. Then he and my mother listed every failure they thought I had ever had while thousands of people listened on their morning commute. My mother said, "She's 22 lives in our basement. Can't keep a relationship. Can't keep a job. Can't even keep her room clean." My father added, "I coach Little League, and those 9-year-olds have more potential than my own child." The host laughed, then asked if I was disabled. My mother said, "No, just a disappointment." My sister texted me the clip with one sentence: "You're famous now." By lunch, my coworkers had heard it. By dinner, my partner had heard it. By the end of that week, he was gone. My mother smirked and said, "See, even he figured it out." I smiled back because they still did not know the one thing that would destroy them. 9 days later, my phone showed 175 missed calls. Mom, Dad, sister, all begging, before I explain how one radio call cost my family everything they thought they owned. Tell me where you're watching from and what the weather is like right now. I want to know how far this story travels before my parents hear it again. That was the part everyone heard. But it was not the part my family should have worried about. The first time I heard the clip, I was standing between two loading bays at the Cedar Rapids distribution warehouse where I worked as a freight documentation clerk. My job was not glamorous. I did not wear a blazer. I did not sit in a glass office. I checked shipment records, corrected bill of lading errors, matched pallets to invoices, and made sure truck drivers did not leave with the wrong inventory. It was steady work, full-time work, honest work. 2 weeks earlier, I had been promoted from temporary file assistant to morning shift documentation clerk. But apparently that detail had not made it into my father's performance on live radio. My supervisor, Anita Brooks, called my name from the dispatch office. She did it quietly, which somehow made it worse. Anita was the kind of woman who could stop a forklift argument with one look. She did not gossip, and she did not embarrass people for sport. When I stepped inside, she shut the door behind me and turned her monitor around. There it was. A local radio page. A headline with laughing emojis. "Worst daughter competition gets brutally honest." Under it was a short audio clip already downloaded thousands of times. Anita said, "Kelsey, I need to ask if you are okay." Woo, that question almost broke me because it was not cruel. Cruelty. I knew how to survive. Concern made my throat close. I stood there while my father's voice filled the tiny office. Confident. Warm. Familiar to every parent who had ever watched him coach Little League. He sounded like a good man telling a funny story. He said I had never launched. He said, "I hid in the basement like a raccoon." He said he had tried everything: discipline, patience, tough love, and prayer. Then my mother joined the call and made it worse. She used the soft voice she saved for people outside our house. She said, "We love her. Of course. But at some point, love means telling the truth." Then she told strangers I could not maintain a relationship, could not keep a job, could not keep a clean room, could not handle adult life. She said I drained the family emotionally. She said my sister had done everything right while I had become the sad story in the basement. People in the studio laughed. The host asked if I knew they were calling. My father said, "Oh, she needs to hear it." Anita paused the clip before it ended. She looked angry, not entertained. "Did you approve this?" she asked. I shook my head. I tried to speak, but nothing came out at first. Outside the office, I could hear forklifts beeping and drivers checking in at the window. Normal sounds. Normal people. A normal Tuesday morning. But my full name had just been turned into a joke people could replay between coffee refills. Anita said she would remind everyone that personal harassment would not be tolerated at work. She said my position was not in question. She said my work had been solid. I thanked her, but I still had to walk back through the warehouse knowing at least 3 people had already heard my mother call me a disappointment. Nobody laughed in my face. That almost made it worse. They just looked away too quickly. At 11:43, my partner Noah texted me. "Is this real?" He sent the same clip. I called him during my break, standing behind the vending machines near the employee entrance. He did not sound angry. He sounded tired, like my family had reached through his phone and handed him permission to give up. He said his friend heard the clip and recognized my name. He asked why I had never told him things were that bad. I said they were not that bad. I said my parents lied. He said maybe not all of it. That sentence hurt more than the radio show. My parents were strangers' entertainment. Noah was supposed to know me. He said the clip did not create doubts. It confirmed things he had been trying not to think about. He said my family drama was becoming too much. He said he needed space. By Friday, space had become a breakup. He told me he could not build a future with someone whose family could explode like that in public. I asked him if he was leaving because of what they said, or because people heard it. He did not answer. That was enough. That evening, I drove to my parents' house because they still believed I lived in their basement. The porch lights were on. My father's coaching bag sat by the door, stuffed with little bats and orange cones. Inside, my mother was in the kitchen arranging grocery store cupcakes onto a glass tray, like she had baked them herself. My sister Lauren sat at the counter scrolling through her phone, her engagement ring flashing every time she moved her thumb. My father was in the living room watching baseball. No one looked ashamed. My mother saw me first and said, "Have you calmed down yet?" Lauren laughed without looking up. You have to admit, it was kind of iconic. My father muted the television. "Don't come in here dramatic." "Kelsey, it was radio. People exaggerate." I looked at the 3 of them. The man who had performed disappointment for a prize. The woman who had smiled while strangers laughed at her daughter. The sister who had sent the clip like a party favor. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw every cupcake into the sink. "Instead," I said, "how much did you win?" My mother's face changed for half a second. Too quick for anyone else to notice. But I noticed. My father said, "That is not the point," Lauren said. "Oh my God, are you seriously jealous of a radio contest now?" I smiled then. Just a little. No. I said I just wanted to know what I was worth. Nobody answered. So I walked downstairs to the basement they still thought was my whole life. There were clothes in the dresser, old books on the shelf, a laundry basket near the bed, and a blanket folded over the chair. It looked lived in because I had made sure it looked lived in. My parents had just humiliated me in public because they believed I was trapped under their roof. They thought the basement was proof that I had nowhere else to go. They had no idea I had not slept there in 11 months. Saturday morning, I drove back to the house they still thought I lived in. I parked 2 streets over because I did not want neighbors watching me carry boxes from the basement. I had a key, a backpack, and a plan I had been building long before my father ever called that radio show. 11 months earlier. I moved into a studio apartment above a closed laundromat on the east side of Cedar Rapids. Its snorts was small enough that my bed touched one wall and my kitchen table touched another. In winter, the pipes clicked all night. In summer, the hallway smelled like old detergent and hot brick, but it was mine. I paid the rent. I paid the electric bill. I bought my own groceries. I kept a whiteboard by the door with my work schedule, savings goals, and every deadline I refused to miss. My parents never knew because I let them keep believing the basement story. That sounds strange until you understand my family. My parents did not argue to solve problems. They argued to create witnesses. If I confronted them privately, my mother would call relatives before my tears dried and say I had another episode. If I defended myself, my father would tell neighbors I was disrespectful. If I moved too suddenly, They would make it look like I had abandoned them after everything they had done for me. So, I moved quietly. I took one bag at a time. I left enough behind to look dependent. A hoodie on the chair, shoes by the stairs, shampoo in the bathroom, a few old pay-ubs in a drawer from jobs I had quit years ago. I even kept paying them $200 a month as basement rent. Not because I owed it, but because it made them comfortable. Comfortable people get careless. My parents were very comfortable. They told everyone I lived downstairs. They told people I was fragile, lazy, stuck, ungrateful, and impossible to help. Meanwhile, I was working early shifts, building credit, saving money, and waiting for the day they said their lies in front of the wrong audience. The radio show gave me what private fights never could: a recording, a timestamp, download numbers, witnesses, their voices, their choice, their pleasure. I went downstairs and packed the last things I actually cared about: a photo of my grandmother, my birth certificate folder, 2 winter coats, and a shoebox full of old journals. Then I went upstairs because I wanted breakfast with them one last time. My mother was making pancakes. Lauren was there again because her bridal shower was the next weekend. And apparently, my parents' house had become wedding headquarters. My father sat at the table in his Little League polo, reading comments on his phone with the satisfied squint of a man checking applause. He looked up and said, "You're up early," I said. "I've been up since 5. He snorted for once. Lauren said, "Careful, she might report you to the radio police." My mother put a plate down harder than necessary. "Kelsey, if you came up here to sulk, please don't. We have too much to do for Lauren's shower." I sat at the table. Which part of the radio call was exaggerated? My mother blinked. "Excuse me, you said radio hosts encourage exaggeration. So, tell me which part was fake. The part where you said I can't keep a job. The part where Dad said 9-year-olds have more potential than me. The part where you said I live in the basement. Or the part where you called me a disappointment." My father set his phone down. "You need thicker skin. That is not an answer." It was entertainment. He said people call those shows to be funny. You used my full name. My mother crossed her arms. "You act like we gave out your social security number. Everyone knows who you are." "Exactly." Lauren rolled her eyes. "Here we go. The victim speech." I turned to her. "You texted me the clip." She smiled. "Because you were famous? No, because you enjoyed it. For the first time." Lauren looked annoyed instead of amused. "You are not going to ruin my week because Mom and Dad won a stupid contest." There it was. Won. I looked back at my parents. What was the prize? My mother stared at the stove. My father said nothing. Lauren answered because Lauren had never learned that silence can protect guilty people. A $1,000 local sponsor package. Some cash. Some vendor credits. "Who cares?" I asked. "Vendor credits for what?" My mother turned off the burner. Outdoor lighting, rental chairs, a dessert table upgrade, things for the shower. It is not a crime to accept a prize. My chest went cold. They had not just humiliated me for laughs. They had traded my name for decorations. My mother's smile hardened when she saw that I understood. "Don't make that face. After everything this family has been through with you, it is nice for one good thing to come from it." My father leaned back. "You should be happy for your sister." I laughed once. It did not sound like me. "You turned me into a public joke to pay for Lauren's bridal shower. You turned yourself into a joke years ago." Lauren snapped. "They just said it out loud." That was when I knew I was done trying to make them feel shame. Shame requires a conscience. Evidence does not. I stood up. My mother said, "Where are you going?" I said, to give everyone the same honesty you gave the radio station. My father's face darkened. Do not start calling relatives. I already did something better. Lauren frowned. What does that mean? I picked up my backpack. I sent the clip to Brent's family. The kitchen went completely silent. Brent Caldwell was Lauren's fiancé. His parents were polite, church-going, reputation-conscious people who believed my family was messy but loving. They had heard the softened version of me for months. Poor Kelsey. Troubled Kelsey. Basement Kelsey. Don't judge Kelsey. She has issues. My father stood so fast his chair scraped the floor. You had no right. I looked at him. You said my full name on air. My mother whispered. Kelsey. What did you do? I said. Exactly what you taught me. I shared the truth in public. Then I walked out with my birth certificate in my bag and their panic following me down the driveway. By Monday. The lie had moved beyond my parents' kitchen. Brent Caldwell's father, Mason, called my dad before breakfast. I did not hear that call, but Lauren made sure I heard about it because she called me 7 times before 8 in the morning, then left a voicemail so sharp it could have cut glass. What did you tell Mason? He called Dad acting like we're some kind of trash family. You are disgusting. Kelsey, this is my wedding. I listened to the voicemail while sitting in my car outside the warehouse holding a gas station coffee and watching truck drivers line up at the gate. For the first time since the clip came out, I did not feel like I was shrinking. I felt still. That kind of stillness can scare people more than yelling. Mason Caldwell was not a loud man. He owned a family hardware store, sponsored 2 youth sports teams, and chaired half the committees at his church without ever raising his voice. He also believed character mattered most when nobody was clapping. My father had spent years presenting himself as a patient dad and community mentor. He coached Little League. He gave speeches about building confidence in children. He wore polos with sponsor logos and shook hands with parents who trusted him with their sons. Then he went on a radio show and compared his own daughter to 9-year-old players as an insult. Mason did not find that funny. According to Lauren, he asked my father one question. If this is how you speak about your own child for entertainment, why should I trust what you taught your other children about family? My father tried to say the clip was edited. Mason said he had heard enough. My father tried to say I was difficult. Mason said difficulty did not explain public humiliation. My father tried to laugh it off. Mason did not laugh back. By lunch, Lauren called again. This time I answered because I wanted to hear how fear sounded in her voice. What did you send them? She demanded the clip you sent me. You know that was a joke. Then they can laugh. You are trying to sabotage my wedding because you are jealous. Jealous of what? Lauren. Of me. Of my life of mom and dad being proud of me. I looked through the windshield at the warehouse doors opening and closing. If pride requires turning me into a punchline, keep it. Lauren exhaled hard. Brent is asking questions now. Good. No, not good. He asked why I sent you the clip instead of defending you. And what did you say? She went quiet. There are silences that mean guilt. There are silences that mean calculation. Lauren's silence meant both. Finally, she said, you always make people choose sides. No, you just hate when people realize you already chose yours. She hung up. 10 minutes later, an email landed in my inbox from a woman named Carmen Ellis, a producer at KZCR, the local station that ran the contest. The subject line said, "Follow-up regarding morning segment." My hands went cold before I opened it. Part of me expected another joke, another legal-sounding brush-off, another adult telling me to accept humiliation as entertainment. Instead, Carmen wrote that the station had received complaints about the segment and was reviewing entries from that morning's contest. She said my father had submitted an online entry form before calling in. On that form, he had checked a box confirming that any identifying details shared about the person discussed had been approved by that person or were otherwise permitted for broadcast. Carmen said the station understood I was the person named in the segment and asked whether I had given consent for my full name and personal details to be used. I read that sentence 5 times. Consent. My father had not just been cruel. He had lied in writing. I forwarded the email to my personal folder, printed a copy at work, and saved screenshots in 3 different places. Then I replied carefully. I told Carmen I had never approved the broadcast. I had not known my parents planned to call. I had not consented to my full name. Living situation, employment status, relationship history, or any claim about disability being discussed on air. I wrote that several statements were false and damaging, including the claim that I lived in my parents' basement and could not keep a job. I did not rant. I did not insult my parents. I had learned that calm facts frighten liars more than rage. When my shift ended, I had 12 missed calls from my mother, 9 from my father, and 23 from Lauren. I ignored all of them. Then my phone rang again, this time from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. But something made me answer. It was Brent. He sounded embarrassed before he even said my name. Kelsey. I'm sorry to bother you, I said. You're not bothering me. He paused. Lauren says this is all a misunderstanding. Which part? That's what I'm trying to figure out. I could hear traffic on his end like he was sitting in a parked car somewhere because he did not want his family or mine to overhear. He said Lauren told him I was sensitive about family jokes. She told him I had trouble staying independent. She told him I lived at home because my parents were supporting me through some things. Then he said, my mom thought you had a medical issue. I closed my eyes. There it was, the older lie underneath the new one. I don't. I said, I work full-time. I live alone. I pay my own bills. Brent said nothing for a moment. You live alone. Yes. Lauren told me you lived in the basement. They all did. His voice changed. Not louder. Lower. How long have you been living alone? Almost a year. After we hung up, Lauren drove to my parents' house looking for me. I know because my mother called immediately afterward, furious and breathless. Where are you? She asked. Not are you safe? Not can we talk? Where are you? Like I was stolen property. I said, home. You are not in the basement. Correct. Another silence. Then my mother said, you need to stop this before people get the wrong idea. I laughed softly. Mom, people are finally getting the right idea. In the background, I heard Lauren yelling, ask her where she lives. Then Lauren grabbed the phone. You know this makes Mom and Dad look like liars about your condition. Right. She said it fast, like she wanted to wound me and warn me at the same time. My whole body went still. My what? Lauren went quiet. Nothing. No. Say it again. I meant your situation. What condition? Lauren. She hung up. I stood in my apartment above the closed laundromat, staring at my cheap kitchen table, and finally understood why my parents were not just embarrassed. They were terrified. The radio clip was not the whole lie. It was the door, and Lauren had just opened it. Once Lauren admitted what people had been told. I stopped guessing and started asking. I did not call my mother. I did not call my father. I did not call Lauren back. Liars love direct confrontation because it gives them time to perform confusion. Instead, I made a list of relatives who had slowly started treating me like glass over the last few years. Aunt Gloria, who always hugged me too long and slipped grocery gift cards into my coat pocket. Uncle Patrick, who once offered to drive me to appointments I did not have. Cousin Megan, who asked if loud restaurants were too much for me. Cousin Danielle, who had cried at Lauren's engagement party and told me she was proud of me for showing up. At the time, I thought everyone had simply absorbed my parents' favorite story that I was unstable, underemployed, and living in the basement because I refused to grow up. But Lauren's phrase changed everything. Your condition. I texted Aunt Gloria first. Can I ask you something directly? What did Mom and Dad tell you about me? She called within 2 minutes. Aunt Gloria was my mother's older sister and the only person in that family who could make Denise Hartman nervous. Her voice was gentle at first. Honey, why? I said. Because I need to know the truth. She sighed. Your mother said you were struggling with a medical situation that made independent living difficult. I gripped the edge of my table. What medical situation? She was vague. She said it affected your functioning and that you were embarrassed. She told us not to pressure you for details. My mouth tasted metallic. Did she say I couldn't work? Your father said steady work was hard for you. Did Lauren know? Aunt Gloria hesitated. Lauren told us not to bring it up around Brent's family because you were sensitive. I thanked her and asked if she could send me anything she had in writing. She did. Screenshots. So many screenshots. My mother texting family members that I was not ready for adult responsibilities. My father saying I could not handle full-time pressure. Lauren writing, please don't judge Kelsey if she seems off at wedding events. She has limitations. Limitations. I read that word until it stopped looking real. Then Aunt Gloria sent one more message. Kelsey, I am so sorry. I thought you knew about the care fund. I called her back immediately. What care fund? Aunt Gloria started crying. That was how I learned my mother had created a small church care fund 18 months earlier. Not an official charity with legal paperwork. Nothing fancy enough to catch attention. Just a family support basket organized through the women's ministry at church. My mother told people I needed help with transportation, appointments, basic living expenses, special meals, and stability costs. She said I was proud and would reject help if it came directly. So donations should go through her. People gave grocery, gas cards, cash in envelopes, small checks, freezer meals. One woman donated a used laptop because my mother said I needed one for remote work training. I never saw the laptop. I never saw the gas cards. I never saw the checks. My mother had accepted sympathy in my name while calling me a disappointment behind my back and on live radio. I sat on the floor of my apartment because the chair suddenly felt too high. It is one kind of pain to learn your parents are ashamed of you. It is another to learn they benefited from pretending to care. Uncle Patrick confirmed more. He had given my father $200 after hearing I needed help covering medical transportation. Cousin Danielle had brought meals after my mother said I was too overwhelmed to cook. A retired church member named Mrs. Pritchard had mailed a check marked for Kelsey's appointments. I had no appointments. I had no condition. I had a job, an apartment, and parents who had turned my invented helplessness into a family income stream. The worst part came from Megan. She forwarded a message from Lauren sent 3 weeks earlier about the bridal shower. Mom is using some leftover support funds to cover the dessert table because, honestly, the wedding is the one happy thing we have after dealing with Kelsey for years. I stared at that line until my eyes blurred. Leftover support funds. My fake illness had paid for cupcakes and chair rentals. I opened a blank document and started building a timeline. I included the date I moved out, the date I signed my lease, the date I started at the warehouse, the date of my promotion, the date of the radio contest, the date Carmen emailed me about the false consent form, and every screenshot from relatives. I wrote one clean statement. No insults, no threats, no emotional speeches, just facts. Then I posted it in the extended family group chat where my mother usually shared prayer requests, and Lauren shared wedding countdown photos. I need to correct several false statements that have been made about me. I am 22 years old. I am employed full-time as a freight documentation clerk. I was recently promoted. I have lived independently in my own apartment for almost a year. I do not have a medical condition that prevents independent living, full-time work, or normal functioning. I did not approve my full name or personal details being used on the radio. Attached are the clip, the producer's message confirming a consent review, and screenshots of statements made about me without my knowledge. Then I attached everything. For 30 seconds. Nothing happened. Then Aunt Gloria wrote, "Denise, what is this?" Uncle Patrick wrote, "Randall, did you tell me the truth when you asked for money?" Cousin Megan wrote, "Len, you told us Kelsey had limitations." Danielle wrote, "I brought meals to your house for Kelsey. Did she receive them?" My mother immediately called me. I declined. My father called. I declined. Lauren texted, "Take that down right now." I replied, "No." The group chat exploded faster than the radio clip had. Relatives started comparing what they had been told. Nobody had the same version because my parents had customized the lie for each audience. To church people, I was medically fragile. To relatives, I was emotionally unstable. To Brent's family, I was dependent but harmless. To neighbors, I was lazy. To the radio audience, I was a failure, funny enough to win a prize. At 6:18 p.m., Aunt Gloria wrote that she had contacted the church office. At 6:34, Carmen emailed me again to say the station had removed the clip from its archive pending review and would no longer promote the segment. At 6:49, Brent texted me, "My dad wants to speak with you when you're ready. No pressure." At 7:02, Lauren called and left a voicemail that began with anger and ended with fear. "You don't understand what you're doing. This could ruin everything." I listened to it twice. Then I deleted it from my phone, but kept a copy in my evidence folder. My mother, clears throat, texted at 7:15, "You are humiliating this family." I finally replied, "No, Mom, I am returning what you made in my name." After that, the calls did not stop. They multiplied. And for the first time in my life, I did not feel obligated to answer. The first real consequence did not come from me. That mattered because my family would have loved to say I was running around destroying them out of spite. But consequences are different when other people read the evidence and make their own decisions. On Tuesday morning, KSC aired a short correction during the same program that had mocked me. They did not replay the clip. They did not say every cruel detail again. Carmen had warned me ahead of time, and I appreciated that. The host sounded much less amused than he had during the contest. He said the station had received credible concerns that identifying information had been shared without proper consent, that the segment had been removed from online platforms controlled by the station, and that they regretted airing personal details in a way that caused harm. He did not mention my parents by name. He did not need to. Everyone who had downloaded the clip already knew. By noon. The correction had become local gossip. That is how small cities work. People pretend they hate drama, then carry it carefully from checkout lines to church parking lots to school bleachers. My father called it censorship. My mother called it persecution. Lauren called it Kelsey's smear campaign. None of those names changed the facts. Carmen forwarded me a formal confirmation that the entry form was under internal review because my father had checked the consent box. I saved that too. At work, Anita asked if I needed to adjust my schedule. I told her no. I needed normal. I needed invoices, truck numbers, pallet counts, and the ordinary discipline of doing my job while my family discovered I was not as helpless as they had advertised. Anita nodded and said, "Then normal is what we'll do." I nearly cried again, not because she comforted me, but because she respected me. That afternoon, the church called my mother. Aunt Gloria told me later because my mother was too busy telling everyone else I had betrayed her. The church office asked Denise to step back from the Women's Ministry Fundraiser Committee while they reviewed the support basket donations connected to my name. They wanted records. They wanted dates. They wanted to know who had donated what and where it went. My mother cried and said she had only tried to help her daughter. The church secretary apparently asked, "Did your daughter receive the help?" My mother said I was ungrateful. That was not an answer. The church noticed. My father's consequences arrived from Little League. Mason Caldwell was one of the local sponsors. Another parent had heard the radio clip and filed a complaint. Then another. Then two more. Parents were not impressed by a coach who preached confidence to children while publicly humiliating his own daughter. The board did not ban my father immediately. Real life is rarely that cinematic. They removed him from coaching duties pending review. That was enough to make him lose his mind. He called me from a blocked number, and when I answered by accident, he did not apologize. He said, "Do you have any idea what you cost me?" I said, "No. Tell me what my humiliation was worth after the lighting package." He shouted that I had ruined his reputation. I said, "Dad, you recorded your reputation and gave it to a radio station." He said I had always been selfish. I hung up. 3 hours later, he and my mother showed up at my workplace. I saw them through the dispatch window before they saw me. My father marched like he still owned every room he entered. My mother followed with red eyes and a purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Anita stepped out before I could even move. "Can I help you?" my father said. "We need to speak to our daughter," Anita said. "This is a workplace." My mother looked past her. "Kelsey, come here." I did not. The old me would have obeyed automatically. The new me stayed behind the counter with a clipboard in my hand and let my supervisor handle the intrusion like the professional problem it was. My father tried to step around Anita. She blocked him without touching him. "You cannot create a scene in an active loading office," he said. "This is family business," Anita said. "Not here." When he raised his voice, 2 warehouse leads in building security appeared. My father looked shocked, as if other adults were supposed to recognize him as the good guy from his own stories. Security walked him outside. My mother cried all the way to the parking lot. I documented the incident in an email to myself with the date, time, witnesses, and what was said. By then, documenting had become instinct, not revenge, protection. Meanwhile, Lauren's wedding began collapsing in slow, expensive pieces. Brent asked her directly what she knew about the care fund. She said she knew Mom collected help sometimes, but thought it was basically for the family. He asked why she told people I had limitations. She said she was trying to protect me from judgment. He asked why she texted me the radio clip with, "You're famous now." She said it was a joke. He asked why every explanation she gave depended on me being too broken to speak for myself. She had no answer. Mason told Brent to slow down the wedding plans. Brent's mother asked Lauren to return a bracelet that had been passed down early as a welcome to the family gift. Lauren called me screaming after that. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice cracked halfway through. "You are jealous. You have always been jealous. You could not stand that I was happy." Then softer, almost whispering, "Please just tell Brent it was exaggerated." There it was. Not "I am sorry," not "I lied," not "I hurt you." Just fix the audience. My mother's calls became constant. My father's blocked number attempts became predictable. Lauren texted from new numbers. By Wednesday night, my phone battery was dying from missed calls alone. I changed my voicemail greeting to say I was not accepting calls regarding family disputes and all communication needed to be in writing. That made them angrier because people who survive by twisting conversations hate written records. On Thursday, the missed calls hit 175 in a single day. Mom, Dad, Lauren, unknown, blocked. Mom again, Dad again, Lauren again. It was almost impressive. 9 days earlier, they had called a radio station because they thought my name belonged to them. Now, they could not even get me to pick up my own phone. I sat at my kitchen table that night listening to rain hit the windows above the old laundromat and watched the screen light up again and again. For the first time, their panic did not feel like my emergency. On the 9th day, Brent asked to meet without Lauren. I chose a diner near the warehouse because it was public, bright, and busy enough that nobody could perform a family ambush. Brent arrived with his father, Mason. They both looked tired, not angry at me. Tired in the way people look when they realize a story they trusted was built with missing pieces. Brent apologized before he sat down. I told him he did not owe me an apology for asking questions. He said, "I owe you one for not asking sooner." That was more accountability than I had heard from my own family in years. Mason opened a notebook. Not dramatically, just carefully. He said, "We are not here to use you against Lauren. We are here because marriage connects families, and we need to know what we are being connected to." So, I told them. I told them I had lived in the basement until I realized my parents needed me dependent more than they wanted me healthy. I told them I moved out slowly because private truth never survived my mother's phone calls. I told them about the studio over the closed laundromat, the warehouse promotion, the $200 a month I kept paying so they would believe I was still trapped, and the clothes I left behind as camouflage. Brent looked stunned when I said camouflage, but Mason just nodded once, like he understood that some homes require escape plans instead of arguments. I told them about the radio call, the false consent, Carmen's email, the prize package used for Lauren's bridal shower, the care fund, the gift cards, the checks, the meals, the laptop I never received, and the messages where Lauren told people I had limitations. I showed them Clear's throat screenshots. I did not show them everything because I did not need to bury them in pain to prove I had been hurt. The clean facts were enough. Brent read Lauren's. "You're famous now, text twice." His face changed the second time. I think the first read hurt him. The second made him believe it. He said, "She told me she was trying to lighten the mood." I said, "She was hers." Mason closed the notebook and looked out the window for a moment. Then he said something I never forgot. A family can survive embarrassment. It cannot survive a system that requires one person to stay falsely broken so everyone else can look generous. Brent stared at the table. "She didn't tell me half of this," I said. "She told you the half that made her kind." We left the diner without hugging, without speeches, without promising to become allies. Real life does not always hand you a new family because the old one failed. Sometimes it gives you one honest conversation and lets that be enough. That afternoon, Brent called off the wedding. I did not know until Lauren texted me a photo of her ring on the kitchen counter with the words, "Are you happy now?" I did not answer. Then my mother texted, "You destroyed your sister." My father texted, "Fix this before I come over." I screenshotted both. The venue kept the non-refundable deposit. The dessert table vendor canceled the sponsored upgrade after the radio correction made the story too risky to touch. The chair rental company wanted a new payment method. The outdoor lighting credit disappeared. Guests started asking questions because you cannot uninvite 200 people without a reason. Lauren tried to say Brent got cold feet. Brent did not fight publicly, but he did tell close friends there had been serious dishonesty involving his fiancé's family. In a town like ours. That sentence traveled farther than an accusation. My mother tried to force Aunt Gloria to defend her. Aunt Gloria refused. The church review continued. My father's Little League board meeting was scheduled for the following week, and parents were already discussing whether he should ever coach again. Every pillar they had leaned on. Church, baseball, wedding, radio laughter, family sympathy, started cracking under the weight of records they created themselves. That night. They came to my apartment. I do not know how they found it. Maybe Lauren followed me. Maybe someone told them. Maybe my mother finally searched hard enough. I was washing a bowl in the sink when I heard pounding on the door. Not knocking. Pounding. Then my mother's voice. "Kelsey, open this door." My body reacted before my mind did. My hands shook. For 1 second. I was back in the basement listening for footsteps on the stairs. Then I looked around my apartment. My rent receipt on the fridge. My work boots by the mat. My name on the mailbox downstairs. Mine. I did not open the door. I spoke through it. "Leave," my father said. "We are not leaving until you fix what you broke." Lauren was crying loudly, performatively. "Brent left me because of you," my mother said. "Please, please, honey. Just tell people the radio show was exaggerated. Tell the church you misunderstood. Tell Brent's family we were trying to help," I said. "You want me to lie to protect the lie." My father hit the door with his palm. "Family forgives." I stepped closer, still keeping the lock between us. Family does not use a daughter's name to collect sympathy, prizes, and wedding money. My mother sobbed harder. "We were wrong." "Okay, we were wrong." "Is that what you want to hear?" It was the first time she had said the word wrong, and it still was not an apology. Wrong can mean caught. Wrong can mean unlucky. Wrong can mean inconvenient. I said. "No, I wanted you to know it before consequences arrived." Lauren shouted. "You ruined the only good thing I had." I said. "No, Lauren. You lost it because the truth sounded exactly like you." My father lowered his voice. Then that was always his final tool. The calm dad voice, the coach voice, the voice that made outsiders trust him. "Open the door. Kelsey. We can talk about this like adults." I almost laughed. "You had an adult option. You chose a radio contest." The hallway went quiet except for my mother crying. I told them I had already documented their workplace visit. The calls, the texts, the voicemails, and now this. I told them if they did not leave, I would call the police. My father called me dramatic, but he left. They all left. I watched through the peephole as my mother clung to Lauren, and my father walked ahead like a man furious. The world had stopped following his script. The next morning, I mailed a certified no-contact letter, not a dramatic manifesto, just clear boundaries. Do not call me. Do not come to my apartment. Do not come to my workplace. Do not contact me through relatives. Any necessary communication must be in writing. I returned the basement key in a padded envelope. I changed my phone number. I blocked Lauren, Noah, and every new account that appeared pretending to just want closure. I kept copies of everything in case a lawyer needed them. The church eventually sent me a written apology for not verifying the story earlier. Some people who donated contacted me directly. I told them I was sorry my name had been used that way, but I could not manage their forgiveness for them. My father was removed from coaching for the rest of the season. My mother never returned to the fundraiser committee. Lauren moved out of the wedding planning group chats and into long, vague posts about betrayal, healing, and jealous people. I did not respond to those either. People asked if I felt victorious. I did not. Victory sounds too clean. What I felt was free. And freedom, after years of being misnamed, can feel like grief before it feels like joy. I grieved the parents I kept trying to earn. I grieved the sister I kept hoping would one day see me as a person instead of a shadow behind her spotlight. I even grieved Noah. Not because he left, but because he believed a recording of my parents faster than he believed the life I was building in front of him. But I did not go back. That matters. My father entered me into a contest called Worst Daughter. My mother called me a disappointment in front of thousands of strangers. My sisters sent the clip like a trophy. They thought public humiliation would prove I was weak. Instead, it gave me the one thing my family had never allowed me to have: a record they could not rewrite. In the end, I did not destroy their reputation. I only introduced it to the truth. And when the truth repeated their own words back to them, even they begged me to make it stop. We truly appreciate everyone who continues to support our storytelling. This visionary video was created only for dramatic entertainment and reflection. We hope it reminds you that not every ending needs closure from the other person. Sometimes your own clarity is enough to close the door. Understanding that you deserved better can become the final answer you were waiting to receive.